On April 10, 1912, thousands of people gathered at the port of Southampton, England, to witness the departure of the most advanced passenger ship ever built. It was a symbol of human ambition, engineering, and luxury. Its name was Titanic. At 882 feet long and weighing more than 46,000 tons, Titanic was the largest moving object ever created by humans at the time. Newspapers called it a miracle of modern engineering, and many believed it was practically unsinkable. As the massive ship slowly pulled away from the dock, passengers waved goodbye to their families, unaware that many of them would never return. Titanic made two final stops to pick up additional passengers. The first was in Cherbourg, France, and the second was in Queenstown, Ireland, now known as Cobh. After leaving Ireland on April 11th, the ship began its journey across the North Atlantic toward New York City. A total of 2,224 people were on board, including passengers and crew members. Among them were some of the wealthiest people in the world, traveling in extraordinary luxury. There were also teachers, workers, musicians, engineers, and hundreds of immigrants hoping to start a new life in America. Life on board seemed perfect. First-class passengers enjoyed elegant dining rooms, luxurious suites, a swimming pool, Turkish baths, a gymnasium, and the famous grand staircase. Second-class passengers experienced a level of comfort that was better than first class on many other ships. Meanwhile, third-class passengers shared stories, sang songs, and dreamed about the opportunities waiting for them in the United States. Deep below the decks, hundreds of crew members worked tirelessly to keep the ship running. Engineers monitored the engines while stokers fed tons of coal into giant furnaces every day. For the first 3 days, the voyage went smoothly. The weather was clear, the sea was calm, and passengers enjoyed the experience of crossing the Atlantic aboard the world's most famous ship. But far ahead, danger was waiting. As Titanic entered colder waters, wireless operators began receiving warnings from nearby ships about ice fields and drifting icebergs directly along the route. Several messages were delivered to the bridge. However, the ship continued sailing at nearly full speed. At that time, maintaining speed through icy waters was common practice among ocean liners. Captain Edward Smith and his officers believed they could safely navigate around any hazards they encountered. On the evening of April 14th, temperatures dropped sharply. The sea became unusually calm. There was no moon in the sky. These conditions made it extremely difficult to spot icebergs because there were no waves breaking against them. At 11:40 p.m., lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee noticed a dark shape directly ahead, an iceberg. Fleet immediately rang the warning bell 3 times and telephoned the bridge. Iceberg right ahead. First Officer William Murdoch instantly ordered the ship to turn and attempted to slow the engines. But the iceberg was too close. Seconds later, the right side of the ship scraped against the massive wall of ice. Many passengers barely felt the impact. Some thought the ship had simply stopped for a moment. Others continued playing cards, reading books, or sleeping in their cabins. Below the waterline, however, the damage was catastrophic. The iceberg tore open several compartments along the side of the ship, allowing freezing seawater to rush inside. Titanic had been designed to remain afloat with 4 flooded compartments, but 6 compartments had been breached. The ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, inspected the damage and quickly realized the truth. Titanic would sink. He estimated that the ship had less than 3 hours before disappearing beneath the ocean. Captain Smith ordered distress signals to be sent immediately. Wireless operators began transmitting emergency messages across the Atlantic. At the same time, crew members prepared the lifeboats. But there was a serious problem. Titanic carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for approximately 178 people. More than half of those on board had no place in the lifeboats. At first, many passengers refused to leave the ship. The decks were brightly lit, the music was still playing, and few believed the enormous vessel could actually sink. As a result, several lifeboats were launched partially empty. As the bow sank deeper into the freezing water, the reality of the situation became impossible to ignore. Panic spread across the decks. Families were separated. Passengers searched desperately for loved ones. Crew members struggled to maintain order. The ship's orchestra continued performing to help keep people calm. Meanwhile, engineers remained below deck, keeping the lights and power running for as long as possible, knowing they would likely never escape. In the darkness of the North Atlantic, nearby ships received Titanic's distress calls. The closest ship, the Carpathia, immediately changed course and headed toward the disaster site at full speed. But it was still hours away. Shortly after 2 a.m. on April 15th, the last lifeboats left the ship. Hundreds of people remained on board. The bow disappeared beneath the surface. The stern rose high into the air. The lights flickered, then they went out completely. At approximately 2:20 a.m., Titanic broke apart and vanished beneath the freezing waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. More than 2,500 people lost their lives. Only around 710 survived. For those who entered the water, survival lasted only minutes. The ocean temperature was close to -2 degrees Celsius, cold enough to cause rapid hypothermia. Hours later, the rescue ship Carpathia arrived and began picking up survivors from the lifeboats. As news of the disaster spread around the world, millions of people struggled to understand how the most advanced ship ever built had sunk on its very first voyage. Investigations later revealed a series of failures, including insufficient lifeboats, inadequate emergency procedures, and ignored ice warnings. The tragedy changed maritime safety forever. Today, international regulations require passenger ships to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board, maintain continuous radio communication, and follow strict safety standards. More than a century later, Titanic remains one of the most powerful stories in history. Not because it was the largest ship of its time, but because it reminds us that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, nature can still humble even humanity's greatest achievements.